Hello, welcome to Breaking News. The question posed today is, did the Supreme Court cause the January 6th riot at the Capitol building? The reason why we need to discuss this issue is because it is a very serious issue regarding our democracy. Feel free to express your agreement or your disagreement, but yet we have every reason to believe that the Supreme Court is the cause for the riot of January 6th. Now notice, we didn't say the Supreme Court orchestrated it. That's a different subject, even though we're going to deal with it. Many of you should know that the investigation is going on about who did what, who didn't do what, and so forth and so on. And if you know anything about current events, current politics, you know how it's going to turn out. That is, there's going to be the truth, and then there's going to be the story that they tell the American people. So the story they're going to tell the American people is everything went according to plan. One or two things went wrong. Oops, we're sorry. It'll never happen again. That's about the size of it. They're not going to implicate the fact that in reality, the people in charge of the Capitol building did a rope-a-dope. In other words, they pulled back the security force to allow what happened to happen only so they could blame President Donald J. Trump. And that played out, and they tried to impeach him. It didn't work. Okay, so the real truth will never reach the ears of the American people. Okay, but that involves the people who may or may not have been responsible for the actual rioting that started off as a peaceful protest. Our interest today, our story today, is about how the Supreme Court started it all. And I want to walk through this with you and break it down for you because there's some important things you need to understand about democracy. Okay, first of all, did President Trump ever present the full evidence in a court trial regarding voter fraud? Now, it's important that you answer that question. Did he ever present the full evidence in a trial regarding voter fraud? Because if he never had a trial, then there's no legal certification of the evidence. And here's the even bigger problem, my fellow Americans. The bigger problem is if you are under the deception of the propaganda spread by the media, you are inclined to believe that President Trump did go to court and the evidence was tested and it was verified to be insufficient evidence of voter fraud. And that is not true. Also, you will remember the Attorney General, William Barr, at the time the president was requesting the DOJ to investigate, he was preparing executive orders for President-elect Biden. That's odd. When the Attorney General, William Barr, said there's not enough evidence to overturn the election, he was lying. Now, I'm not calling the man a liar. I'm simply telling you the spin he put on that suggested that he was in agreement with the flow of propaganda and not in agreement with the search for the truth. And this is where the great divide lies. Because had William Barr said there's tremendous evidence of voter fraud, it would have stopped the wheels of justice right there until we figure out what happened, what all did the voter fraud do. But the propaganda, listen very closely, the propaganda said all the president's claims are baseless. And if you go back and look, almost every news station used these words, baseless claims. Then they start calling it the big lie. And ladies and gentlemen, this is very, very important. If you believe the propaganda, it is almost impossible for you to believe the truth if it smack you in the face. You have committed spirit, soul, and body to the propaganda. And everybody on the propaganda team uses the same words. President Trump keeps telling this false rumors, this baseless lie about massive voter fraud. Let's go back to the question. Did any court ever fully test the evidence by the Trump team of voter fraud in a court of law trial? The answer, of course, is no. So now you got to notice what has happened here, particularly as we move toward the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court was the next step up after the lower courts dismissed President Trump's claims. They dismissed his cases. And so those cases appealed to a higher court, dismissed again, appealed to the Supreme Court, dismissed again. Now here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you decide if, in fact, we are still a democracy, or have we moved over into communism and you didn't get the memo. What happened? You didn't get the memo. We became communists and you don't know it. Well, how could that be? Consider this. The Constitution provides its citizenry with the right to redress grievances. Now, we got to break this down to a logical step and a logical point of view so that it could work for everybody. Because that's the purpose of the Constitution. That is the purpose of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It can work for everybody. Okay? So, first of all, President Trump sought to redress his grievances. Now, in order for those grievances to be redressed, there has to be due process of law. Fifth Amendment, due process of law. That every American citizen is entitled to their day in court, and they are entitled to a fair trial. They are entitled to a fair trial. Due process of law. And so you gotta ask the question, not is the propaganda true or false? The question you want to ask is, did President Trump get due process of law or not? See, because you got to understand the power plays behind the scene that you don't see or know about, particularly if you believe CNN and other news stations. They are proponents of the great propaganda. In other words, they'll fill your mind with the wrong answer to make the right answer seem ridiculous. And that's powerful. That is very, very powerful, because every American citizen should make sure that every other American citizen has their day in court if they need it. Every American citizen should support every other American citizen in the redressing of grievances. So when you put aside partisan differences and preferences like, I like Donald Trump, I don't like Donald Trump, then you look at the real picture is, does our law work? And if it's not working, how come it's not working? And where is it not working at? Well, you see quite frankly that the court system have established a precedent whereby if a case comes to the court and they disagree with the potential outcome, they will dismiss the case. That will leave the plaintiff, the person who's bringing the case to court, to appeal to another higher court. And if that higher court does the exact same thing and dismiss the case, now that case can be appealed to the Supreme Court. But guess what, my fellow Americans? If the Supreme Court follows what the other courts have done and also dismiss the case, that means that justice was not served. I don't care who the person was that brought the case. That person did not and could not redress his or her grievances. That means then that the court system has become communistic and no longer a system of democracy. So when you see, now listen, when you see what happened June 6th at the Capitol building, it makes you wonder why so many people were out there. The propaganda says, oh, they were out there, extreme right-wing Trump supporters were out there to do violence and bodily harm and an insurrection. Hold it right there. Slam on the brakes. How many senators, how many congresspersons was kidnapped? How many congresspeople were beat down and handcuffed with a gun to their head? How many members of Congress were forced to write and sign agreements giving over their authority to the perpetrators? In other words, ladies and gentlemen, the word insurrection, as it was used by the media, is a complete lie. There never, ever was an insurrection on January the 6th. Now, once again, I got to point out to you that if you believe the propaganda, it's hard for you to receive the truth. I mean, I would have to use a jackhammer, the kind of drill that breaks cement up, to drill the truth through your head, because you have sworn in blood on believing was clearly propaganda. The truth is, if there had been an insurrection, then an attempt to take over the government was made. But in reality, what actually happened just appears to be what could normally happen when a lot of people get together and drink a lot of beer. Anything can happen. But there was no attempt to take over the government. There was no attempt to do any of the government people bodily harm. But check this out though, because I'm a veteran, right? And I've been trained militarily. And I know that if a potential riot outbreak could possibly happen January the 6th, then the street should have been lined with soldiers and police officers establishing the line of demarcation. In other words, the police, the soldiers are standing out there and they're saying, do what you want to do, but you can't cross this line and head towards the Capitol building. The fact that the Capitol building was left open can only mean that it was left open on purpose. But as I stated in the beginning, the truth of this is not likely to come out because the people who should be charged for trying to set up Donald Trump to be impeached will not be charged. There's not enough power to charge those people. They will wiggle out of it and through the media create a different spin and somehow still blame President Trump. But I'm pointing out to you, you have generals, you had a Pentagon there, any military people near there, they automatically know how to secure a perimeter. So if that perimeter was not secure, that's because people were looking the other way on purpose. That is a fact. It's the same with what happened in Benghazi. They left those people out there unprotected and they got smoked. Same story, same people behind it. Now figure that one out. But back to the story though, because we gotta establish where the fault really lies and who to place blame on, and then who to take action against. You will notice President Trump brought his voter fraud case to the Supreme Court, and it was dismissed. It was dismissed repeatedly. It was repeatedly dismissed over and over again. And this helped to fuel the propaganda that the president has baseless claims. Well, I submit to you today, the president never got his day in court, and you can't show me where he did. I don't care if you believe the propaganda or not, he never got a day in court. He never got a full discovery of the evidence so that the triers of fact could try all the evidence from the rooter to the tutor. Try all the evidence. That never happened. And what that means is that the Supreme Court neglected to do their duty. You gotta understand how big this is. Now you remember, hopefully, when you were a little child. Well, when I was a little boy and I smacked my brother on the back of the head. He said, "I'm telling Mama." I say, "Mama ain't here." He said, "Well, I'm telling Daddy when he get home." Now guess what would happen if Mama and Daddy never came back? There would be nobody for my little brother to tell on that I smacked him in the back of the head. Well, think about President Trump. He has a grievance to be redressed, and there's nobody to tell the grievance to. There's nobody that will listen to the grievance. And you know what the biggest problem is, and this is why so many Americans are hypnotized by propaganda, is the fact that the president who faithfully served the country cannot get a day in court. That ought to be a red flag to every American, right? Every American say, wait a minute, I may not like the guy, but he still is entitled to a full day in court of due process of law, discovery of evidence, whatever is required. Now here's why all that is important, ladies and gentlemen. This is the whole point to this issue right here that I bring before you. Now I want to show you why the Supreme Court is responsible for the riots. Why so many people were out there on January the 6th is the fault of the Supreme Court. Here's why. Okay, suppose I am a Supreme Court justice, right? And President Trump brings his case to me. Well, me being the last bastion for the Constitution, or in other words, if there's any place where the Constitution must work, it has to be the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court are constitutional experts. And so here I am. I would have to take President Trump's case. Here's why. Because the whole psychology of redressing a grievance is that the person that brought the case to court is grieved. They believe they were done wrong, and they are coming to the judicial branch of government for justice. It's the same story. Okay, so your neighbor's playing baseball in the backyard, and they bust out your picture window. Cling! They shatter it. Well, the neighbor just say, oops, and that's it. And you say to the neighbor, you're supposed to pay for it. Well, you have to take him to court. Now, suppose you take him to the local court, the district court, and finally the Supreme Court, and each court dismiss your case. That means justice is not available to you at all under the court system. That means the court system is not operating under a democracy, but is instead operating under communism. And the major difference is, communism, they'd probably just kill you and get you out of the way. But here in America, they just won't take your case and let you go head back home, right? So anyway, back at the ranch, here I am, a justice of the Supreme Court. I have to take this case. I have to take this case because the mental health of the whole nation depends on this case. The president, who has served 4 years, deserves his day in court. And I have to find out if his claim is just. So I'm gonna look at all the evidence that his team has from every state, from all the swing states. I'm gonna stop everything to solve this issue because this issue is the key to the mental health of the whole nation. So, suppose through discovery, through trying these facts as the Supreme Court, we discover that President Trump is absolutely wrong. Suppose we looked at every bit of evidence. It took 75 days. But because we're a democracy, we obey the Constitution, not public opinion. So it took 75 days. So what? It just took 75 days. Well, we discovered that President Trump was absolutely wrong. Guess what would happen? All Trump supporters would say, oh, okay, I guess we can go home then. We'll get them next time. We put up a good fight, like Apostle Paul. We fought the good fight. We kept the faith, right? We did all we could. We did all we could. There's no more we can do because we have the establishment of legal reality that the voter fraud claims are false. Now, folks, you automatically know that never did happen. The news media saying those claims are false are not based on evidence. So it's strictly propaganda. And why would any branch of government allow for this malicious propaganda to fool all the American people? Why would they do that? Good question, right? Okay, but now let's look at it on the other hand. Suppose Supreme Court evaluates the evidence and they said President Trump is right. Team Biden cheated. There's massive voter fraud and President Trump won the election by a landslide. And they used computers and fake ballots and everything they could use to cheat for Biden. President Trump was right and should be certified as the President of the United States. Well now, seeing as how the Supreme Court would have the evidence on the table to show to anybody, to show to everybody, what would all the other hostile groups of people do after that? They would say, oh man, you mean we're out here fighting, risking our life for a guy who's a thief, is a low-down, no-good, dirty bum, and we believed in him, and he is lying and cheating and stealing. Let's go home. That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. That a definitive ruling a constitutional, definitive ruling by the Supreme Court would have settled the issue once and for all, and there would be no grievance. See, you are grieved if something happened and you take what recourse you have, and the recourse doesn't allow you to unload the burden. You're still grieved. And so the riot that occurred was a bunch of grieved people, because those people saw better than other people that democracy does not work, because the courts have taken the authority upon themselves to pick and choose which cases to try and which cases not to try. Now, I'm going to tell you why that's so important, because we need to take action over this issue. Number one, the courts leaders, the judges and justices, they are appointed by people that we the people hire through the election process, right? And then some judges are elected. Either way, we the people are paying the bill, and every justice and every judge is on the payroll. What else do they have to do but try cases, all things being equal? Now, that claimer, all things being equal, is necessary because some cases are outwardly, obviously frivolous. But in a case like this, whereon was the mental health of the nation depended upon, and the court did not resolve it, that is a crime. That is a crime. For a valid case to come to a court and for a court to not take that case, that's criminal. That's a violation of the Constitution, because if the Supreme Court won't take the case, where can the person go after that to redress the grievance? They have nowhere to go. What is he gonna do? Tell the Kremlin? What is he gonna do? Tell Kim Jong-un and North Korea to solve the case? Where could President Trump go after that to redress the grievance? See, folks, after a while, the issue was not about Trump. It was about right or wrong. If Trump was right, he'll get what's coming. If Trump was wrong, likewise, he would get what's coming. That was the issue. And the courts took it upon themselves to break and violate and usurp authority over the Constitution. So I want you to know what that means now. I want you to know what that means. I'm gonna make an example. Suppose Google wants to sue Facebook, but the courts, like Facebook, they could do the exact same thing in every single court, all the way up to the Supreme Court. It doesn't matter whether you're big or small. It's a matter of fact that the courts have wickedly, and I mean that sincerely, they have wickedly established a precedent of ill will, where they can pick and choose which cases get heard. How can you do that when you're on my payroll? I'm paying you to try all cases that are not obviously frivolous. Let me give you another issue. Why would a court of law under the Constitution seek a loophole to get out of trying that case? That tells everybody the court is up to no good. They're doing something sinister if you're seeking a loophole to get out of a case. Because if you dismiss, for instance, President Trump's case, you got other cases coming up. You still got your life as a justice of the Supreme Court or a judge in a court of law is to try cases. No matter where they come from, they will not stop coming. It's some bad stuff going on all the time, so you always got cases. So it didn't matter which case is which. A case is a case is a case. You apply the same legal principle and jurisprudence to each case in an effort to solve the criminal issue or to bring justice. Either one or both. That's what you're doing as a court of law in America. And they didn't do it this time for one person, Donald J. Trump. And so the issue in America now is that how can you get your case through? If all three courts dismiss your case because they've already set a precedent to do so, then you SOL. You are shocked out of luck because there's nobody else to tell. I want to make it clear. If the Supreme Court unjustly, unjudiciously, and ridiculously dismiss your case, there's nobody else to tell. And you're grieved. You walk with that grief. Now, let me explain it to you in closing. This grief, the ability to not redress grievances, was in the hearts and minds of all the people up there on the Capitol, except for the sneaky, avowed evildoers who were hell-bent on causing destruction. Okay? The regular people, the Trump supporters, were there when President Trump was giving a speech. The other people were already attacking the Capitol building while President Trump was speaking, right? So the media is not going to tell the truth because they would have to contradict the tremendous flow of propaganda they already initiated. And it's like, when do the media say, oh, by the way, we were wrong on a million things? They'll never admit they're wrong, which makes them liars, by the way. But anyway, the whole point is the precedent set means you got a 50-50 chance of a court trying your case. If your case comes to court around vacation time, they'll dismiss it in a minute. They have established that loophole, and unless we take action and undo that precedent, we're in trouble. Because any time in a democracy where you have the right to redress grievances, that you no longer have that right, it's no longer a democracy. It has become a communistic nation, and they just didn't give everybody the memo. So was the Supreme Court the cause of January 6th riot at the Capitol building? Yes, because they should have resolved the issue legally and thoroughly for the sake of the mental health of this nation, and they refused. And what should we now do? We should empty the bench of all those who voted in favor of dismissing those cases. That's what we should do. And we should get 150 million petitions in order to do it, however many we need, and we need to do it now. Because if there is no way for a citizen, much less the President of the United States, to redress grievances in a court of law, we have fallen to communism. And the first thing we gotta do is start from where it started at, and that's the courts. So we gotta throw those people out. Everybody that agreed to dismiss the cases, we gotta throw them out legally, and we gotta do it now.